And welcome to Lounge Ronin, all things, everything. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the lost Mitanni Empire. And with all things, everything, I ensure you to please do your own research, as you may be surprised at what you discover about the world and yourself. Hello there, I'm Kios Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Ronin Art and Music, home to Ronin Music, Lounge Ronin, all things, everything, the Monday Mindset Rants, and Ronin Reviews. We strive to make holistic and authentic content that aims to improve your individuality, mental fortitude, and peace of mind. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love. Now, back to the show. The Mitanni Empire was established in 1475 BC and was disestablished in 2060 BC. It was one of the biggest, most powerful nations of its time, and its influence spread far and wide, yet you've probably never heard of it. The Mitanni Empire is a truly lost kingdom. Despite its incredible power at the time, very few records of its existence remain today. Instead, historians have had to combine sources from all over the region to piece together the picture of the nation. The Mitanni Empire is a fascinating example of historians acting as detectives. So, who were the Mitanni Empire? The Mitanni Empire was founded around 1475 BC in the northern Euphrates Tigris region, which would be northern Syria and Turkey today. The ethnicity of the first settlers is still debated. Some historians believe that they were Indo-Aryans or Indo-Iranians, while others believe they were Semitic Hycosis, Egyptian origin. However, the jury is still out. Historians have been left with very little to work with when it comes to determining the original ethnicity of the Mitanni people. They have mostly focused on an old treaty that was signed with the Hittites. The treaty mentions the names of several deities, and the hope was that these names could point toward an origin of the Mitanni people. The treaty mentions gods such as Indra, Mithra, but unfortunately both the Indo-Aryans and the Indo-Iranians worship gods under those names. This had made it essentially impossible to narrow down the ethnicity any further than the current evidence. The name Mitanni most likely comes from the nation's ruling class warriors called Marianu. Egyptians translated this as Naharin and Mitanni, creating the Mitanni, which then became the Mitanni. As the everyday people who lived there, they were Hurrian. In records, the Hittites referred to them as Huri and the area as the land of the Huri. The Mitanni's empire's forgotten capital. Every empire needs a capital, and the Mitanni capital was Washukani. Washukani's name is similar to the Kurdish word Bashkani. This can be translated as either source of good or source of wealth, both of which make sense for naming the capital of a great empire. Washukani was located somewhere along the river Habur, the Al-Kubari River in Syria, but its exact location is unknown. Some historians, such as Oplitz and Oppenheim, theorize that the Washukani was located under the mound of Tel el Frak Harari, located near Gonza, Syria. Here we have an illustration, an image of modern Tel el Fakari, one of the possible sites for the ancient Washukani empire capital. Historians are still debating the location today. Recent archaeologists' work has found evidence of something under the mound, but so far nothing ties directly to Washukani. this is a good example of just how little we know about the Mitanni Empire. We can't even find its capital. And, I think this kind of coincides a lot with Graham Hancock's work and his, season two of Ancient Apocalypse, and just this idea of like these, forgotten empires. And more than likely, this empire was just probably absorbed into a new emerging empire or was completely stamped off the face of the earth, which also seems to be another theme that we see when some of these empires fall, especially those that we have very little information regarding them. We know that when a new player takes over, they tend to absorb them or they tend to eradicate any previous existence of them. So, sometimes I wonder when it comes to a lot of these ancient civilizations that we've just never even heard of, more than likely, it's just that they were just eradicated from the history books purposely. And when we covered, and I highly recommend you check out my episode when we cover the Amazonian women and we learn the true origins of the term, you can understand why ensuring the eradication of an empire, even in name and reputation, can essentially um, ensure that it's lost to history. So let's continue. The reach of the Mitanni Empire. The Mitanni Empire was huge. At its apex, the Mitanni Empire controlled extensive trade routes ranging down the Harbor River to Mari, a Mesopotamian trade hub, and up the Euphrates to Karchemish, on the border of modern-day Syria and Turkey. Its northern border reached up to modern-day Syria, and its eastern border reached Nuzi, Kirkuk in Iraq today. The southern border stretched from Aleppo to Mari, while the western Mitanni reached eastern Anatolia. All this land was incredibly fertile. No artificial irrigation was needed. It is known that the people of the Mitanni were adept at raising livestock such as cattle, sheep, and goats. Yet what they were really known for were their horses. The Mitanni Empire was famed for its horsemen and charioteers. We know that the empire enjoyed good relations with some of its neighbors. The Mitanni Empire was allied with the Kuzawatana, the southeast Anatolia, and the Makush and the Naya. On its eastern flank, the Mitanni were aligned with the Kassites, Kurdistan today. All this means that the Mitanni Empire had a huge sphere of influence when it combined its territories with those of its allies. As mentioned earlier, this is the only way we know anything about the forgotten Mitanni Empire, but from its own records, but from those it interacted with. For example, we know the Mitanni were known as great horsemen and charioteers because the oldest known horse training manual, excavated from the Hittite archives of Hittasa, contains the work of the Mitanni horse trainer. The Hittites also recorded that the Mitanni people were great innovators when it came to designing the light war chariot. They were supposedly the first ones to use spoked wheels, rather than wheels made of solid wood, making their chariots lighter and faster. Here we have an ancient marble bas relief of a charioteer. This has a huge implications historically. The Hittites stole this design and took it as ancient Egypt. The Egyptians then copied the design from the Hittites and perfected it. The war chariot was a major staple in the ancient Egyptian army and played a major role in making their army almost unbeatable. It turns out they had the Mitanni Empire to thank. So, this is what I was saying earlier, about some of these empires being eradicated, but their influences, their contributions tend to be, stolen, and almost like a stolen valor, you can say. And these newer empires tend to convince the history books that they were the original purveyors of innovations or technologies or uh, ideas and thought. So that's just something to keep in mind. Let's continue. The kings of the Mitanni. Mitanni's leadership is somewhat less of a mystery. Although no Mitanni records exist, we know the names of the Mitanni kings through their correspondence with the leaders of other nations. We know that they did not. We know they did, and what moves they made from records kept from these nations as well. Stating with the 16th century BC, Mitanni's most influential leaders seem to have been the king Kurta, his son Shatana the first, and his successor Bharatama. Of these three kings, the most well known is Bharatama, or Parshhatara. Historians can't even agree on his name. That's how little information there is. It's crazy. Then, Thutmose III of Egypt declared war on the Mitanni Empire around the 30th year of his reign. We know from Egyptian records that the Egyptians were successful. How successful is up for debate. However, the problem is Egyptian records could be propaganda, making them unreliable. All we know for sure is that the Egyptians' gains were short-lived. The Egyptian gains were short-lived. Whatever land they gained was back in Mitanni's hands by the time of the next Mitanni king. But here we have a picture of some cylinder seals and pottery fragments of the Mitanni culture. King Shushtar and the rise of the Mitanni Empire. Shustara, I apologize if I'm butchering some of these names, led from around 1500 to 14 BC. He is less of a mystery than his predecessors, and he is often depicted as the best of the Mitanni rulers. This is because during the reign of the Mitanni Empire rapidly expanded and enjoyed major victories over its biggest rivals. Shustara raided the Assyrian Empire, Assur, and at some point in the 15th century BC, he took the gold and silver doors of the Assyrian royal palace back to Wushakani as trophies. It is also thought that it was during his reign that Aleppo, Nuzi, and Arafat came under Mitanni rule. Historians believe that this military success was largely thanks to Mitanni use of the war chariots mentioned earlier. It is also under Shusar that the Mitanni Empire took back much of the land that they had lost to Egypt under Baratara. And around this time, Amenhotep II of Egypt fought in Syria, presumably against the Mitanni. So, this is kind of similar to Shaka Zulu when he created the short spear. Creating the short spear in military, it drastically changed the way armies did battle during those times. And he was able to essentially create his empire due to this new type of technology he implemented of his own creation. But I highly recommend you check out my video on that, and if it's something you're really interested in, do your own research. But the same can be applied here with the Mitanni when it comes to their chariots. Let's continue. Here we have an aerial photograph of recent excavations of the Mitanni era site exposed by drought. Artatma and Shutarna playing politics. While Shusar did much to expand the Mitanni borders, it was King Artama and his son Shutarna who made Mitanni a major player. It is under these kings that the Mitanni Empire joined the Great Power Club. This is a name created by modern historians to describe the strongest nations of that region during the time. The other members were Egypt, the Hittite Empire, and the Babylonian Empire. They joined the club by making peace, not war. Artama made peace with the Egypt, and the Shatara carried it on, even visiting the Egyptian court. During this period, the two powers exchanged extravagant gifts and amenable letters. This peace led to several royal weddings and aimed at cementing the friendship. For example, Artama's daughter was married to Thutmose IV, and Shutmar's daughter was married to Amenhotep III. When Amenhotep III fell ill, Shutnar sent him a get-well gift, a statue of the goddess Shushka, and the Shushka. The statue supposedly had the power to cure diseases. This period of the Mitanni rule is so well documented thanks to the letters exchanged between the Mitanni and the Egyptian rulers, called the Arnan letters. Unfortunately, even those letters are fragmented, leaving us with a picture that isn't 100% complete. It is unclear why the Mitanni kings decided to change their previous antagonistic relationship with the Egyptians. Two common theories put forward by historians are that the Mitanni leaders desired access to Egyptian gold, or that they feared the Hittites and wanted Egyptian support. So here we have an image of the Amarna letters. The beginning of the end. Archmara and Tushratta. What followed was the beginning of the end of the Mitanni Empire and the bloodiest period in the Forgotten Empire's history. It all began with an assassination. Don't they all? Don't they all? King Shudnara was followed by his son, King Ashrama. Give me one quick second. I need to get a sip. Apologize. King Ashrama, Ashrama's reign was brief. He was soon assassinated by a man called either Uthi or Udhai. Yet again, sources conflict. Udhi placed Tushratta, another son of Shudnara, on the throne. We have no idea why Udhai did this. His motives are unknown. Tushratta was probably very young, so Udhi's endgame may have been to use Tushratta as a figurehead while ruling from the shadows as some kind of regent. Whatever his goal, he underestimated the young king, who swiftly managed to expose him. This was Tushratta's only victory. Things would soon go downhill fast. The Mitanni and the Egyptian honeymoon would quickly be over. The Mitanni Empire became reliant on its connection to the Egyptians, but this connection soured under Tushratta. Exactly why is unclear. Some historians have suggested that the Egyptians simply foresaw the fall of the Mitanni and so decided to cut them loose. Others believe Tushratta wrote the Egyptian pharaoh demanding gold, which offended the Egyptians and caused a diplomatic crisis. Tushratta may have married one of his daughters to the Egyptians, leading to a falling out over dowry. However, the daughter's identity, Tad-u-Hepa, is a matter of much debate. Whatever the reason, the relationship soured and the Egyptians abandoned Tushratta when he needed them most. Tushratta was soon being attacked on two fronts. The Hittite king Supililuma was looking to make a name for himself. He decided to do this by attacking the Mitanni Empire's interests and invading the western Euphrates Valley. At the time, Ushkanani became the setting for a power struggle between Tushratta and his brother, perhaps Artama II. Initially, Tushratta had the backing of his nobles, and Artama II was little more than a nuisance. It seemed like Tushratta would prevail. Unfortunately for Tushratta, Supililuma saw his chance and threw his weight behind Artama II. Tushratta's only chance was to turn to the Egyptians for help, which never came. The Egyptians feared the growing might of the Hittites and didn't want to pick a fight with the growing power. Supililimu, yo, this name is so funny. Supililuma. I know I'm butchering it, but I want to give my best. Wasted no time raiding Ushakani. It was a bloodbath. Sorry, my tongue got a little tongue-tied for a moment there. What happened to Tushratta is unknown. The Hittites claim that Tushratta fled never to return. Other sources claim he was assassinated by one of his sons in an attempt to appease the Hittites and save the city. During the resulting unrest, Aramata took his seat on the throne. Mitanni had survived the Hittite invasion, but it was a shadow of its former self. The Hittites took huge chunks out of the Mitanni territory. The Assyrians also took the opportunity to take their share of the Mitanni land. Well, there you have it. The fall of the kingdom of Mitanni. Artama II was followed by his son, Shudmar. It appears that Shunara was no fool. He knew his kingdom was in trouble. One of his first acts was to appease the Assyrians. He returned to them the palace doors of Ashra that his ancestor had taken. His hope was that the Assyrians would help protect him against the constant Hittite threat. The Assyrians and the Hittites were enemies, and it seems Shutnara wanted to play them against each other. The next time the Hittites attacked Ushkani, the Assyrians sent their army to help. When the Assyrians' army arrived, everything went wrong. For reasons lost to time, Shutnar did not allow his Assyrian allies to enter Ushkani. The Assyrians, feeling slightly and perhaps more than a little annoyed, decided to attack the very city they had come to save. In doing so, they sealed the Mitanni Empire's fate. What followed was a three-way war between the Mitanni Empire, the Hittites, and the Assyrians. After years of fighting and when the dust settled, the Assyrians were the victors. They claimed the Mitanni lands for themselves and sent the Hittites home to lick their wounds. The Assyrians put a vassal king in charge of the area, Shatura. How he was related to his predecessors is known. Shatura and his successors would continue to rebel against Assyrian control over the next few decades. Despite their best efforts, they never succeeded, and the Mitanni Empire was lost forever. Conclusion. These rebellions against the Assyrians are probably what led to the Assyrians' largely successful attempt to wipe the Mitanni Empire from history. They destroyed every record, every trace of the Mitanni that they could. This has left historians with precious little left to work with. Today we know next to nothing about Mitanni culture and society. The only sources we have come from kingdoms that were either continually hostile towards the Mitanni Empire or eventually became hostile towards them. These sources have also often actively contradict each other, making them unreliable. This means that everything we do know about the Mitanni often has to be taken with a grain of salt. Sadly, we'll probably never learn much more about the forgotten Mitanni Empire. It has likely been lost to time for good. It is fascinating and a little scary to think that a nation that was once such a powerhouse can fall to nothing and be erased from history almost completely. And that concludes The Lost Mitanni Empire. Fascinating stuff. Like I said, how many incredible civilizations and cultures we'll never get to learn and study because they were completely eradicated and wiped off the face of the earth. All that remains of them is dust and the brief whispers that are found. Civilization is a fickle being. It's emotional, it's unreliable, it's unsteady, but it's beautiful. And to deny civilization is to deny ourselves the chance to be more than what we are. Blood and bones. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.